And what I find is when I travel and now I go home, it is so much connection and depth and appreciation on both ends. Like I cannot wait when I see my parents, and I get so excited about their hugs, and we'll sit and we'll talk about real stuff and what are we afraid of and what about life and what about this culture and all these things that are special.
Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Dylan Callier. I'm a physical therapist, and welcome to the New Medical Nomads podcast, where I get to document my journey as a medical traveler, as well as interview other experts within the traveling field. Now, the rules for the traveling game are constantly changing, so anything you hear on this show should be for entertainment purposes only. This is not legal, financial, or medical advice. Enjoy the show and safe travels. You had mentioned some maybe negative experiences that you've had, and something that I'm wanting to get out there is not necessarily those horror stories, so people can add to that list of why don'ts or why I shouldn't, because I don't think anybody should be scared to do this, but I also want people to be empowered and feel like they can handle those situations when they come up.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about those negative experiences, and then how did you handle that, and then how did the company you were working through handle that?
Yep. So one of my most negative experiences was my second assignment ever as a new grad. And it was the first time I'd ever worked in a skilled nursing home. And this is quite a while ago, so the laws have changed. So I don't think exactly what I went through could happen anymore, but it doesn't matter. It's still the point of it. I went into a location, and I had very, very little training, first of all. There was a huge therapy team, so I did my job on the interview to make sure there was enough support. But the whole entire place was run really unethically. And the charts were absolutely nowhere. They handed me my schedule, and there was over 1,000 minutes a day. And on a schedule in a skilled nursing home, that is seeing 2-3 patients at a time all day long with no documentation. There was zero chances I could ever do one-on-one. My caseload was so long, I didn't know a single patient, and it was really stressful. Now, I walk in, every other therapist has the exact same caseload as me in the exact same situation, and they're doing it, right? So here I am as a new grad, and there's all these they're not travelers, all these other permanent staff that are just doing it. They're not reading the charts, they're putting them in circles, they're throwing balls. It felt so off. But what we want to do naturally, especially when we're newer to travel and we don't have that ethical boundary line yet, we're still looking up to people and seeing what other people are doing. We want to say yes and go along with it. And I struggled so much going into that work environment, and my gut knew this is not right. And so I had a mentor, like a clinical mentor, which was one of my old professors. And I called him and told him what was going on, and he was really empowering. He didn't tell me what to do, but he was like, this is your moment. He's like, you get to decide now. You're a professional. You have a license under your name. You have clinical boundaries. You get to decide. And he's like, you get to decide that now. And so that gave me the confidence I needed to realize I could stand up and say no. And so I did. I sat down with the manager and had a conversation, and then I talked to my recruiter about it, and they stood behind me on this. And that was the only contract I've ever left my whole entire travel career. But it actually, as bad as the situation was, I think it gave me so much strength and so much courage to be able to stand against 20 other therapists and leave a situation like that. And so I think, having a mentor is so important, because you don't want to talk to your recruiter about clinical stuff because they don't know, and they're going to really want you to stay in that job. It's it's really bad when you leave a job for their company, and you don't want it to be your coworkers because they're doing it, right? So you need someone outside that's in the setting that you can talk to, especially when you're newer to a setting, because you don't really know what's normal and what's not normal. So I think having a mentor, open communication with the recruiter, I talked to him the whole time through it, so he wasn't shocked where it's not like I just walked out. There was a conversation the whole time. And then I think remembering, what does it give you as a human? A lot of travel is about self-growth and discovery, and what that gave me was irreplaceable, right? So even the horror stories have such silver linings as well.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, what a good good way to look at kind of those tough situations of, just being kind of between a rock and a hard place and standing your ground.
Right. Yeah.
You were mentioning, so recruiters want you to stay in those, when you accept a contract, they want you to stay with the contract. And are there any penalties associated? Like when you backed out of that, do the recruiters feel that on their end, or does that business feel that on that end, or what happens after that, after you do back out?
Yeah, it's so dependent on each contract, but it is consequences. The company, so if you were a recruitment company, and then can you imagine like a traveler coming through and you've already paid up front them to travel from point A to point B, you already paid up front their license, you paid their background, so much money, they went into debt on good faith that you would work those hours. So if you don't work the hours, they never make that money back. It's why they penalize some people, because they literally lost money off of you. And so it's just important to remember that's what's happening. They're trusting us when we sign those contracts, and they're already putting a lot of money towards us. And they don't get paid until a lot of times the end of a whole contract. Some companies don't even pay them till months after we finish, is how it works on their end. So it's a lot of good faith for us to work those hours. Otherwise, they'll never make that money back themselves. Now, I've never been charged a penalty. And with that one, it was more of a situation of ethics and good communication. And they just got me in another job straight away. Like there was no bridges burnt. But when you do just leave a job for nothing, another job opens up, right? And you're like, oh, I just want to go to Hawaii. I don't care. I'm just going to walk out of this one. That's when companies get really frustrated, because you interviewed, you said yes, they already paid for all of this stuff. And then you're just going to like bounce because something feels better. So it's just remembering there's a consequence, a butterfly effect, whatever you choose.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think companies could do a better job explaining that, because we get really like taken back by penalties and stuff like that, But yeah, I don't think companies are definitely not out there to just like take advantage of us, and they don't want to penalize us. But a lot of times if we leave a contract as well, on their end, they call them the client, which is the hospital. They won't work with that company again. They like lose a client because of one traveler, which is a big deal for them.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Kind of switching gears here. So you've been doing this for 8 years. You go to a new place. Usually there's like a little time there at the beginning where you don't really know anyone. You might be a little more indoors. What do you do during that first like couple weeks in order to make connections and find people you relate well with?
Yeah.
Kind of, some people go to the gym, some people just, go out to parks and meet people that way. What do you usually do? And then also, not just here in the States, but when you're out traveling to different countries, how does that work well?
Yeah, I think what's so cool about what we are up to is it's an interesting conversation. So you can always go anywhere and walk up to someone and say, "Hey, I'm new to this area. I'm in traveling healthcare. I don't know if you've heard of that. I'll be here for 3 months. Like, what are the coolest things to do in this town?" So no matter where you go, people love that. For one, there's an opening about what's travel, healthcare, what do you mean? And then they get to talk about their town. And then you're like asking for help. So they're like the hero. So it's really quite easy to start conversations in that, which is good. So anywhere you go, whatever your interests are, you can always walk up to people. And I would encourage you to like make yourself like goals to be like, I'm going to walk up to 3 people and say the story and have these conversations, because it helps you like not worry about going up to people solo anymore, which I don't think about anymore. But I do remember when I started, I remember this when I was in college. I don't know why this conversation sticks out to me so much, but I have a conversation with this group of people in college, and it was a bunch of us, and we were all saying, oh my gosh, these people that go out to eat by themselves, how do they do it? Or these people that go to the movie theaters by themselves. And one girl was like, I go to the movies by myself all the time. And we were all like, oh, you do? And it was like, oh my God. And now I can't even remember what that felt like to be like scared of that, because you get out, like I don't even think about it anymore. I travel solo all the time. But anyway, I'll say for myself personally though, when I travel to new places, the point of that is I'm going to a new place. So I do as much as I can. That is part of the culture of that area, whatever it is. In the United States, we might as well be 10 different countries. We have so much diversity in America, completely different cultures. So wherever I'm going, I will dive all the way into that culture. I go to local coffee shops and I'll look on their like boards where people can stick stuff and see what local stuff is going around. I'll look on Eventbrite because they'll have all kinds of free stuff and paid stuff.
What was it?
It's eventbrite.com.
Eventbrite. Okay.
Yep. And you can put in any area code and they'll just say all the stuff around that area. And then meetup.com, I've used tons to meet up with specific groups of people.
Okay.
And that will get me out of my comfort zone. So my goal is always to do things that stretch me.
Okay.
So I have a motto in life, and I say if it's scary and it's exciting, then I do it. If it's only scary, I don't do it. I don't need to scare myself for the heck of it. But if it's scary, but it's scary to the point of exciting, I'll do it. So I'll look at stuff, and that's kind of the energy I'm looking for, is like, put me on my comfort edge, but I'm actually excited to do it. All right, let's do that. So yeah, Eventbrite is good. Meetup.com is good. I've gone to places where I couldn't find a meetup I liked, so I challenged myself to start my own. So that's a good way to like stretch yourself and get people together that are like-minded, and you can start one, which is fun. And then, yeah, besides that, I guess I just get out of my house. Like, that's how you meet people, is just moving and getting out. So coffee shops are huge for me too. Yeah, and one fun thing that I think is cool. Have you ever heard of Fiverr.com?
I've heard of it, yes.
Okay, so Fiverr is like, it has 2 R's at the end.
Okay.
Fiverr.com. It's a place you can buy almost anything for $5, right?
Okay.
So I've even done a Fiverr challenge with me and 2 of my other traveler friends. We were in 3 different locations. Okay. So we all logged on to Fiverr. We put a post up that said, for $5, we want someone to make us a 10-part bucket list of the top things to do in this town and we gave them like categories of things we're kind of into. Uh-huh. And then this random person like went up and looked up all the things around and made our bucket list, and we had to do their whole entire bucket list that they gave us. Yeah. So it's like $5, and they'll give you things that might be more outside the box, because they'll be looking on different websites. They know things you don't know. So that's a fun way to try to like see random things that you're like, how did they come up with that? Oh my God. Okay. I have to do it. I made a pact. So
that's cool. Yeah. That's really cool. When you're in a different country, speaking of like Thailand, and I don't know how many English speaking persons are there, does that change when there's like a little bit of a communication barrier?
So all like Southeast Asia, shockingly, it's like so English friendly.
Wow. Okay.
Way more than South America is actually. And before I started traveling, I would have thought the opposite, but it's so not. When I went to South America, I was like stuck without Spanish. But Southeast Asia, there's so many travelers. And so you have to like actually push yourself to really get into their culture and meet locals, because there's just so many gorgeous travelers from all over the world.
Wow.
So I find it incredibly easy to travel and meet people, especially if you're traveling solo. When you have to make it more intentional when you travel in pairs, because then you're more intimidating to walk up to. So you have to be the initiator more. When you travel solo, there's tons of Facebook groups now wherever you go that you can log on to whatever interest is in that area. And tons of like outings. Like, there's just so much. And the thing about traveling overseas when you're a foreigner, way more than in the States, you meet somebody else that's from anywhere, like from Europe, from Australia, anywhere, who's also traveling. You're like instantly going to skip the first 10 stages of friendships and you like go straight to best friends. And people, like, it's such a heightened awareness. Like, you're both in a new surrounding, you're both excited, and you're both have stories to tell. So you'll sit down, and like the amount of being present with each other is a lot bigger. The amount of vulnerability and people willing to just be completely honest is huge. Like, they just feel like they're out there to do that. So there's not this kind of like game at all of like, do we like each other? Should we go out? People are just like, come here. Are you coming here? I'll text you. So yeah, you'll make best friends no problem just by going and putting yourself out there. People will love you. Yeah.
That's awesome. Speaking about vulnerability, so I have a lot of friends, friends that are women, girls, and they want to travel, but they don't want to travel solo because they're scared of being so vulnerable. It's a little bit different than traveling as a male or as a man. Can you talk a little bit about that, being a solo woman traveler?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think by vulnerability, I'm guessing you're talking about safety.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think now, like, more and more, there's even more, like, there's so much resources out there for us. So for one, just like the myth I was trying to say about the fear in travel healthcare, oh my gosh, but when you're looking stuff up on the news and on our feeds, it is all about getting your attention and clickbait. We feel like the world is more dangerous right now.
Mm-hmm.
We feel more scared on our day-to-day life. I do too. Like it's everywhere. But the reality is the world is really, really safe. And almost everywhere I've gone overseas, and I mean, like, I've been out to so many countries that before I went, I thought this might be a more dangerous place. And I felt safer than I did in my hometown walking the nights at night. So first of all, I think it's just like taking a deep breath and trying to take away the preconceived notions of what you see and like our initial reaction to places. But then that doesn't mean you don't want to be safe, but there's a lot of resources. So they have apps now in the United States. So if you're talking about a travel healthcare worker who's just scared of going to another state, they have these apps. One of them is really cool. It's called like Safe Trek. I'm going to look and make sure I'm saying it right. Yeah. Safe Trek, TREK. It's an app. So it's a subscription. I think it's a few dollars a month, maybe $2.99 or something. I don't really remember. But when you're somewhere, even if you're in an Uber car and you're feeling a little bit like funny, you can just grab it and hold on to that button and it'll like blink. And then once you get wherever you're at, you unhold it and you put in your passcode and it says you're safe. If you let go and don't put in the passcode, instantly the police officers get your exact GPS and come there. And so they have that. They now have like these pretty little bracelets that look like leaves that you can be like jogging and you just push it and it'll send your GPS out. So there's all these little things you can have as like just feel more confident being out there in the world, because we could be weaker, like we are more vulnerable to safety stuff. But just remembering it's so rare. Like, stay alert, do all the things that you know with common sense. But as much as I've traveled, and I have so many friends that have traveled way more than I have as solo females, I can't even put on one hand how many times I actually felt like I would need to push that button. So people are overwhelmingly generous and kind in this world. And even though there are some people that are not, to let that limit your life experience is like those few people are winning, and you'll get overseas to these places and be like, oh my God, like everyone is so nice and it's so safe. And the poorest countries that I've been to are the ones that I literally left my iPod, because it was that long ago that it was still iPod time, out on a beach. And I went back hours later remembering, and I was like, there's no way, it's gone. And the waitress like ran to me when she saw me to give it back. Like it's just there's just such honest karma cultures out there that you just feel like, whew, wow, this world's cool. So don't let it stop you. But yeah, you can get the bracelets and stuff like that to have that extra sense of safety.
Very cool. Yeah, I'll be sure to put all those in the show notes, and I'm loving all the websites and stuff to go to. I think that's super helpful.
Good.
That's awesome. Were there any other items or apps that you've purchased or use on a frequent basis? Doesn't have to be just a phone app or anything. Could be actually something physical.
So when I travel, the physical things I always travel with are pillow, a toothbrush. Those are like if I have those two, I feel pretty good. And my NutriBullet, because I always make smoothies wherever I travel to. And then whenever I travel with my clothes, I usually need about half of them. So you can always pack less clothes. The physical thing that helps me the most, I think, is my big OT reference binder, which anyone like RNs, PTs, anyone can make their own reference binder. It's amazing traveling for this long, how many incredible resources I've gotten along the way. Instead of just being at one place and using their resources and inspiration, it's dozens, and so I have this amazing reference binder. So now even if I step into a place that doesn't have all the treatment equipment and home exercise programs, I have my binder that I'll go to a place and I'm everyone's best friend because they're like, oh my God, can I use your reference binder? Like, I know, it's like gold. So that goes with me everywhere.
Now, is that a physical binder, or do you have an e-binder as well?
It's both. I scan it in
cool.
Because if I lost it, like that would be devastating. So I have it scanned in onto Evernote, but I do actually physically take it with me everywhere too, because it's a lot easier in the buildings to just make a copy of something versus like, trying to get your Evernote up and stuff like that. But I keep both because it's too, like, God, if I lost that, so sad. there's another website called Traveling Mailbox.
Okay.
And I use that for all my mail just gets sent there, and they scan it in. So I can just look online and just tell them shred, forward this to me, shred, save this. But they automatically scan it. So all my mail automatically goes on my Evernote now, and I can delete what I don't need, but I have a better record for taxes and for everything. So I use them. But one thing, back to the whole tax thing, they don't have one in every state. So for you to have a forwarding address in a state. So my tax home state is Texas. And so my travel mailbox address is Texas.
Okay.
If they don't have one in your state, I think it's like, maybe you should find a different one to do it, but something like that, which there's more than one company like that, are really helpful if you don't have a parent, or if you just don't really want someone opening up all of your mail, it's kind of nice.
Okay.
And
that's really cool.
Yeah.
So does it go to your tax home, does it go to that address first and then get forwarded to them? No,
it's a whole separate thing. So it's kind of like the concept of having a P.O. box that would get sent directly to them, but it's not. It's an actual physical building address that then like forward straight to them. So it kind of looks like I have a different Texas address still in Dallas for my mail, but because it's still in that same zip code, it's fine for my taxes. And I don't know the answer for sure, but I would just call Travel Tax before you change your forwarding address to a different state, because you just don't want red flags. You just want your stuff to just look easy. And then the last thing that I think has been a fun one, that's an app, is there's these apps, and there's a few of these as well, but it's like a postcard app. So now you're going to be in a lot of long distance relationships, like friendships and parents and grandparents, and you're going to cool places. And so a lot of these people would love to see like a physical printed picture, and it's something unique. So the app, you can just pick a picture, and that becomes a postcard, and you can like put words on it if you want, or, all the little graphics you can do, and then type something on the back. And it's only like $1 per postcard, and they'll mail it for you, stamp it for you. It's your picture. So it's like such a sweet thing to do for grandparents or nieces and nephews, or somebody, just to like remind people that you remember them, like you're doing your adventure, but like they're, you still have great relationships you want to maintain. So that's been like a fun one, to pick out pictures and send them to relatives.
Gotcha. Is that what you use for the pictures behind you there on the big map?
Oh yeah. No, it's not actually. Those are like some group that made like pretend Polaroid pictures. So I just put like a ton of my travel pictures. And then I was going to try to put them like on the countries I was in. Yeah. But they were like pretty big for the map. So now they're just randomly on there. Yeah.
That's funny. Talking about relationships, so that's a great way to keep in contact with your family. I actually have 3 nephews of my own that are growing up. And one of the things I'm like kind of wary of is like growing distant from them. How has that impacted you in the past 8 years with your family? And what are other ways that you've kept that strong?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how much technology has grown and changed since I just first started traveling. When the first time I went overseas, my aunt bought me the original iPad. Yeah. And I was overseas with it, and people would like flock to me and be like, "Oh my God, is that the iPad?" And it was like the coolest. I was like the coolest person ever. And and so, but I'd have to like search for Wi-Fi, and sometimes it'd be a while till I could talk to people. But anyway, now there's so many different ways to actually stay in touch. And what's really special is when you start traveling, there is a fear of like growing more distant and missing things. Like the worst is missing like the graduations and the birthdays and stuff like that when you're far away. But, and you just don't feel like it's the same when you Skype. But what I have found actually is, for one, it really inspires people. When you as a human decide to like step up and become the best version of yourself and really put yourself out there and try and live empowered, what it does is it gives the people around you permission to do the same. So a lot of my friends and family have been inspired since then to do their own traveling where they never would have, or to start a business where they would have been so scared. And so never, like, that's separate from connecting, but just remember, if you feel that and you go and do that and you do it fully and excitedly, people, it like rubs off and makes the world better just by you living fully. And how humans connect, like our lowest common denominator as humans is to complain and live less than ourselves. And it's what you see everywhere. And it's like, if someone shows up grumpy, our initial thing is to like match them and say what else is bad with our thing. And it's how we bond. But what we really want is connection. And when someone shows up really happy and excited, sometimes it pushes people off because they think, oh, I can't quite connect to that, or maybe I'm not doing as much. It doesn't matter. You keep doing that, and people start realizing, oh, I can live like this more fulfilled life. So for one, don't hold yourself back, because the impact you'll have long term is big, and it's big for the people you love too. And then secondly, the connection part, which is cool. When we get into routines with people in our life, we take them for granted. And it's accidental, and we don't mean to, but it's just daily life, right? So we go through the routines, we'll have dinner, we'll pop in, we'll pop out, all of this, but the depth is not necessarily as deep as it could be, because we always think we'll get to it later. And what I find is when I travel and now I go home, it is so much connection and depth and appreciation on both ends. Like, I cannot wait when I see my parents, and I like get so excited about their hugs, and we'll sit and we'll talk about real stuff, and what are we afraid of, and what about life, and what about this culture, and like all these things that are special because we get these like moments, and we have real things to talk about after. And same with my best friends, and same with my brother. So to me, it's about the quality of time versus the quantity at this point. And so I don't want to hold myself back from doing something, but then when I'm with them, I'm 100% present. My phone's like away. I'm at that dinner table, like soaking up the moments. And so I think it's made my life richer. And I feel like I know my parents, and they know me deeper than maybe they would otherwise.
Very cool. That was very good. Kind of getting into a deeper level. When you're doing your solo traveling, you're much more likely to start feeling that like lonesome, lonely, kind of down and out. Do you reach out to your parents at that point, or how do you combat that?
Yeah. So a few different things. I could reach out to best friends and parents, and it is like, it's really, really good connection to do that, even long distance. But what do I also find, which is something that people tend to avoid a lot, is taking those quieter moments that we have, that we get because we're traveling, that when we are in these routines of a busy life, a full social calendar, we know everybody, it's harder to have just like quiet, lonely moments. It's actually, maybe we'd be lonely, but in a busy setting if we're, in those things. But like, to be lonely and not know someone, it's kind of unique. At least it is for me. When I'm home, it's like go. And so, yeah, if I'm really, really lonely and I need like a lifeline, I'll reach out to people. But I also take that time to get to know myself more. So a lot of times loneliness feels like loneliness, and that's what we label it as, but it could be so many other things. It could be like my path is going in a wrong direction. It could be a disconnection with myself. It could be some part of me that needs looked at. And so we have two options at that point. We can be lonely and not want to feel that feeling that feels bad. So we'll go out, or we'll drink, or we'll stay busy, or, we'll constantly be on the phone to like get rid of it. Or you can like try to dive into it and learn more about yourself. So I've done both. Like, there's not like one way to do it, but I think those are your two avenues. You like squish it for the time being, but usually if I have an emotion like that, there's something deeper there.
Got it.
Or I'll go into writing. For me is huge. So like my journaling time, or that's where I might plan, like make a plan for myself to stop the loneliness. That's rather than taking a step maybe backwards into comfort, I'm going to stretch myself to a discomfort to get past it. So that's when I might start looking up Eventbrite, putting stuff on my calendar and things like that in those moments. Yeah.
So do you journal?
Yeah, I journal a lot. Almost every day. Probably 4 days a week I journal.
That's awesome. That's really cool. On a computer or handwritten?
Mostly computer, and so sad, but my hand gets tired. It's like we're not used to handwriting anymore, and so I'm so much better. And now I'm like more self-conscious about typos because we have these great spell checks on the computer. So like, yeah, I do it on the computer way more. But sometimes I'll do it by hand.
Yeah. Do you have a plan for that, or is it, I know that's like your release, but do you like keeping that for like future family or?
I've never even thought about it. I don't
Okay.
know. I don't know.
Well, you got it. Here's the
Yeah, we'll see.
Oh. Anything else that you wanted to talk about with like the lifestyle of traveling, or maybe some things that you didn't think about when you were jumping in?
When I was jumping in.
Or even now, 8 years later.
I think the biggest things are just trust yourself. A lot of times our answers are already within. We can get in the habit of asking for advice, but just trust your intuition. A lot of times you know what the next place is it's calling you. You know when a job just feels intuitively good when you interview for it. So yeah, take the opportunity to just like trust yourself. And yeah, I don't know. I don't really know. Like, I think I've said a lot of what I would say right now. But I think a lot of it is just enjoying the journey is the biggest thing, and thinking of it that way, and not taking it all so seriously. Like, you go into it and things are not going to always go right. And there's no such thing as expectations being met. Like, it's always somewhere around it. So I think, yeah, I'll just enjoying the moments, because it's a cool freaking thing that we are able to travel and get paid in this industry. So
I think for me, traveling and going to a new place helps me be present in the moment. So when I'm here at home, I'm thinking the future of my next move, of this podcast, like just a lot of different things going on. But when you're at a new place, instead of like, looking at the ground at your feet and thinking, you're like looking up and like seeing everything for the first time.
Yeah. It like gives you like a childlike wonder again.
Yeah.
Where you're just like, you get to just be curious and be like, which is great. It's my favorite emotion. So
yes. When I was I went to study abroad over in Oxford for a summer. And I went a week early with one of my friends, and we went to Scotland, and we ended up going to one of these castles, and the castle turned out to be a museum for kids. But you wouldn't have been able to tell that from the way that we were running around and looking at everything, and pop open doors. And it's definitely for like a child of 8, but you're just like, oh, this is cool.
Oh my God, it's so fun. Oh, that is the best.
So going back into nomadic harem, you kind of changing the travel profession here. What are some red flags that you look out for your recruiters when you're doing your sign-on? And how can, travelers be more aware of what they need to look for?
Yeah, this is a really good one. I think how I view this is that it's kind of the same way as when we spend money. I think whatever we spend our dollars on is what we're voting to stay on in the world. Like, we get that amount to vote on, say, this food is good, this is what I want, this is what I want in my world. It's the same thing with recruitment companies and recruiters. Who we say yes to and take those jobs with is essentially who's getting paid. And we're saying, yep, I want you to stay around. So knowing these red flags are great, because if the more travelers who recognize these and can walk away from them and give a chance to the recruiters that aren't doing them, the better our industry gets.
Right.
Because the recruiters will either adapt or fail, and the companies are going to watch and see that travelers are seeing this stuff and saying no. So just putting that out there, it's great. It's great for the whole industry to say no to these things. So I'd say the biggest red flags, one that is never okay, is when a recruiter submits you to a job without asking your permission first. And so what I mean by submittal for new travelers is that means they're giving your resume to a job. Before they do that, they should have gone over the whole pay package with you. You should have had your chance to negotiate. You should have had your chance to talk to other companies, to let them know if you're already getting submitted by another company. So them doing that is kind of like bullying you. It traps you into that company. Hospitals don't like you getting submitted from multiple companies, and it limits how much you can negotiate. So if a recruiter ever does this and they just call you and say, I submitted you to this job, it seemed perfect, that's not okay. So red flag. I think if they're promising you things verbally, but then giving you excuses of why they can't put that in writing, that's a red flag. Everything that they're promising us needs to be in writing and signed on the contract. So that's something we should feel, fine to stand up and say, well, if you're offering this to me, we've got to write it down, or you'll have nothing to stand on later. The way they break down pay is important. So if they're giving it to you in this lump sum, like we were talking about earlier, it takes away so much of your power of understanding if your taxes are being done right for your own protection, of where you can move money around, of how to negotiate later. So the less information they give you, the more skeptical I am of either the recruiter's knowledge themselves. It might not be intentional, but it doesn't matter if it's intentional. We still need to stand up for what's right so they can adapt and learn. Them not being available is such a big deal. We are traveling across the country. It is really vulnerable and scary, and it's brave, and we need a lifeline. And so for a lot of people, the recruiter is their lifeline, and definitely in the world of jobs they are. And so if a recruiter is if we call them and they are spending days before they get back to us, that's a red flag. So I'd say if you have to wait more than a day, than 24 hours to hear back from a recruiter, and then if it's something that's an emergency, it should be so quick. That's not typical. So know that there's better out there, and you can leave and get someone that's like responsive and right there with you, because it makes a big difference to know your recruiter is by your side during this. If they make you feel guilty for talking to more than one recruiter, that is a red flag. And some recruiters still do this and say, some of them will actually say, I'll only work with you if you're loyal to just me. Or others will do it a little bit more subtly and just like, oh, I spent so much time on this job, or like say things that just make you feel a little bit bad, and they're trying to be playful about it. The thing is, the way our industry works is that different recruitment companies have different exclusive jobs. And then a lot of them share a lot of the same jobs. But working with more than one lets us see options, and it gives us a chance to negotiate, which doesn't mean we're like pinning recruiters against each other. It's not us against them, but all of them, all the recruiters I interview and I ask this question to, they all say like, if I was a traveler, I would have more than one recruiter. Mm-hmm. And so they get it, they understand it, but they're playing these games and making you feel bad. And so if you're feeling that and they're making you feel guilty and that you can't communicate openly with them, walk away. There's plenty of recruiters that will get it. They get it. They want what's best for you. And then I think the last is more of this like nonverbal cue, this pushiness, the sales tactics, this used car sales thing. It's so it's so old. It's so not our industry. It's not the way our industry should be headed. And it's so unfair that this happens so much, that they'll push us into making a decision before we have all the information, or make us feel bad, or not answer things fully, or say, okay, I'm going to ask my boss, but only this, and do that used car sales thing where they act like they have to go through all these chains and they're our buddy, but this person's the bad guy. Like, it's just so not honest, and it's not transparent. And how can you trust them to be a part of your team if you don't even, they're pushing you in these different directions. So I think those are the big ones to look out for. And know if those are happening, there are great recruiters out there. And so you can walk away and have a completely different experience. And it really, really changes our experience as a traveler to have that great recruiter versus the not great one.
Got it.
Yeah.
Those are all, really good. I know I've had a couple people already reach out and were curious about, getting started and finding the right person that they feel comfortable with. And I think something like that is, what I had done before, I was in the process of finding a recruiter before I got this job offer with my friend. And I would just go with what friends had said that they felt comfortable with. But even then, sometimes you get on and it'd be like, oh, this is, we're not well at all.
I know. And what's interesting is when I first started Nomadicare, so I interview recruiters a lot. A lot of my hours are spent interviewing recruiters. When I first started, I thought the best way for me to find the best recruiters will be through other travelers, of course, right? Oh my gosh, that was so wrong. I think most travelers don't even know what is good, right? So maybe they have a bond with them, but they don't have much other experience. So they'll recommend them in good faith, really believing it. But once I got to interviewing them, I was having worse luck when it was referral based from other travelers versus just calling the companies and saying, these are the qualities. This is what I'll definitely say no to. So I just need the ones that will do this and this. So it's so interesting. Like, I think in general, it's hard. It's hard to find a good recruiter, which is why I started Nomadicare, right?
Right.
make that a little bit easier. At least, someone's interviewed them and is holding them accountable and
Yeah.
cares a lot about what's going on in the industry. So at least it gives people a starting point, and then they can see if the personalities, mesh well.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So what are your plans from this point on? Where are you looking to go?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So I got back from this trip. I was gone, so I am doing PRN right now.
Okay.
Until after the Travelers Conference, because I'm part of the committee and one of the speakers at the Travelers Conference. So I don't have like a 13-week slot before then.
Okay.
So I'm doing PRN here, and then we'll see. I don't know. I honestly don't know like where I'm going to go after this. I know I feel really excited about the next steps for Nomadicare, and I'm starting to hire and get more help for it.
Yeah.
Because I'm excited to see where that goes, and we're adding online courses to it.
Very cool.
That the people get. We have the mentors that people get matched with. So if you are a new traveler and you need a mentor in a setting, then you can get that. So there's all these new things that like take over my headspace, right? And I'm really excited about. But a lot of it is up in the air. So I guess we will find out where my life goes. Yeah.
Well, that was all the questions I had. Is there anything else you wanted to tell the listeners?
I think your questions were spot on and awesome. Yeah, I think this is great.
I think it comes with being a healthcare practitioner. You get good at questions.
Yep, that's right. That's right. It's a lot of art. Yeah.
When you started your travels, you said that you kind of had to push yourself and talk to like 3 people a day and things like that. Are you a natural introvert, or are you an extrovert, or?
I am an extrovert.
Okay.
So anybody that knows Myers-Briggs, which I learned it when I was in OT school, and then I just I went through the phase of giving it to every friend. I wanted to know everybody's Myers-Briggs. I thought it was the coolest thing. But I'm an extrovert, and then I'm an ENFP. So it's pretty much like the dreamers of the world are the ENFPs. But no, I'm extroverted, definitely. But I think I'm extroverted, but I also do well when I set goals for myself. I guess they're kind of like games for me. So that's why I would make the list to check off. And it was scarier. Truly, at the beginning, though, it was scarier to go up to people and be alone, because before I traveled, I wasn't ever alone. I had friends I had in my circles. I was always in Texas. So even though I'm extroverted, going out solo was a whole new challenge for me. So it was, it used to feel unnatural to go to a movie theater alone. That was scandalous. And so things have definitely changed in the last 8 years.
Well, I am definitely just a natural introvert. So I, prefer to curl up in a corner and read a book. But I've adapted to my environment. So I've had a lot of people say that. I can't believe that, because, but no, I still recharge at the end of the workday, because you're just talking to patients. But you get good at, leading them, asking questions, and then letting them talk. And it's like, yes, comfortable.
Yes, keep talking. I'm so comfortable. Yeah.
All right. Well, for the listeners, do you have a way that you would prefer them reach out to you?
Yes, absolutely. So you can go to nomadicare.com. So that's nomad, I care. And you can write me an email at Laura@Nomadicare if you ever have questions. I'm also on Facebook tons. So I do Facebook Lives a lot that you can jump onto and ask me questions on there in my Facebook group. But I would say, reach out to me. And the thing that I think will be most helpful to you guys today is probably that pay breakdown guide, because we talked about it a lot. So feel free to write me. And you can even, if you go to nomadicare.com/pay breakdown, which I can give you that link that you can put in there. Yeah. You guys can go there and see the whole breakdown, and then just download it to your computer as well. And it has the email template in it that talks about this is how you can ask your recruiter to break down the pay differently and stuff like that. So that's probably the most helpful thing I could give you guys today that we talked about. So go there, download that. If you need a recruiter match, you do it straight on Nomadicare as well. And that is just getting matched with 2 recruiters that fit your needs. So it's not like these lead generation sites that just give them to everybody.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It's 2 unique ones that are just for you. And then we stay in touch. And I make sure the recruiters are doing what they want to do. I make sure you know what's going on. I can look at your contracts and things like that. So yeah, just stay in touch. I'm here to help.
Perfect. And yeah, anything that we talked about will be in the show notes down below. If you're looking for the next couple episodes, go to New Medical Nomads podcast on Facebook. That's when you'll get the official release. If you want the early videos, join us on Facebook, or sorry, not Facebook, go to YouTube and subscribe. And then I usually upload those a few days beforehand. You'll get the early episode. But thanks so much, Laura, for coming on the show. This has been awesome. So fun.
Yay, this is so great. Thanks, Dylan. This is fun.
And we'll talk soon.
Okay, sounds good.